So now we've come to the part of the conference which I've been looking forward to. We're going to have a panel discussion. We call this the Unmentionables because this is the part where we talk about things that you don't want to talk about, or that we don't even want to talk about. You know, last year we talked about prostate cancer. We got kind of deep into that. And this year we have with us Dominic Campbell from the Irish Hospice Foundation, and we have some men from Headford, Westport, forgive me, and Lismore Men's Sheds. And they're going to talk to you a little bit about grief and loss. And I know this is something that touches everybody. So without too much ado, I'm going to ask the lads to come up onto stage here, take a seat, and we're going to talk a little bit about grief and loss. All right, Dominic. Thank you. Thank you.
Afternoon. I'd like to thank the exercise guy for reminding me that the muscles that I've lost are in my belly and they're never coming back. My name's Dominic Campbell. I work for the Irish Hospice Foundation, and part of my job is to encourage people to talk about dying, death, loss and grief, which might sound like one of the toughest, grimmest conversations. But what I've discovered, having done this since the middle of the pandemic when we started it, is that actually those conversations remind you about why and ways that people live well. So we're going to show a couple of videos. We're going to have a bit of a chat, catch your breath, let your lunch settle. Would you like to show the Raytown one?
Well, my brother-in-law and Martin Bourne here, he was the founder, so he blagged myself and another guy in who was a train driver in North Israel. Three of us kind of set it up. Took us a couple of years just to get into the community centre. We were banging at the door, trying to get a space around here that's difficult. You know, it's a prime location. So in 2017 we landed here. So then Anto, who was the other guy, he got a donation of a 20-foot container you seen on the way in there from North Israel, and that was our shed to begin with. That's all we had. We live on, we're on the sea here. It's kind of a nautical team. It's all about saving, not so much saving lives, but I suppose, you know, saving poor souls. And it stands out. People, when we're out and about, people, they identify us straight away. It's kind of the long arm of Wings End reaching out, isn't it? It's more people connecting, I think. You know, like there'll be family members. Like Noel, Rebecca was talking about earlier on. That's his grandson there.
I needed a place for work experience, and I asked my grand, I was like, do you know any place I could get work experience? He's like, yeah, grand. I have a place here, it's the man shed down here, because I love doing stuff with my hands and stuff, and he's like, you can come down and do it with me here.
There's no age bracket in this shed.
But the main thing is when you come in is you put on the kettle and have a cup of tea, and then your day starts
it's like
from
there's
there.
always a meeting on the table.
The day starts from there then, you know.
Yeah.
They always say when you come in, have a cup of tea, then you can start doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, have a little family meeting.
An empty sack won't stand.
Yeah. Everything's fun.
There's a lot of different personalities here, like there is everywhere. And in the beginning, one fella mightn't resonate with another, and over time, best mates. I think mostly it's the social aspect, and particularly if somebody is retired, widowed, living alone, it's getting them out. Just getting them out. You don't have to do anything. Like we didn't do anything in the beginning here. Slowly but surely we started doing stuff. Originally we were just doing up the place for ourselves. Then it was, what can we do for the community? And at the minute now we have a project coming on for the school. We're going to be doing a lot of benches and stuff for them, planter benches, and the Sandyman Community Centre, we've done picture rails and stuff for them. So it's just, people are getting in touch more and more now because we're becoming more established and more known. I mean, he was the main man, wasn't he? Like, I mean, he touched everybody. He was just one of these guys that was always there. You give him out in the ring at 3 o'clock in the morning, where are you? You know, no matter what. And he was handy. He could do a bit of everything. He was a mechanic, he was a carpenter, he was a plumber, you know. He was there all the time. But he's instilled a lot of skills in the people that are here, that people that would have never have maybe got up a ladder or taken out a saw, you know, and just everyone now is like, John will tell you, that concrete finishers, they're the carpenters, they're electricians. He's given us a few little bits of skills and give you the confidence to kind of, you can do that, have a go at it.
That's one of the things about the shed is, you know, somebody will know something that you don't know, and you know, vice versa, and you pass the stuff on, and like I've learned stuff since I've come in the short time I'm here, and it's been great, you know, and equally the lads will say, oh, you know that thing you're doing, could you know, I said, yeah, no problem. So it's great, so we bounce off one another, and it's really good like that, you know.
Yeah.
We used to do a lot of that with Martin, so that kind of dried up a little bit now because when Martin passed, you know, so.
Yeah.
Do a little bit of moving around. Thank you very much. Cheers. I have to apologise to my partner because I didn't realise this was going to be filmed, and I got up in the dark this morning and I've got a really big hole in my jumper. So if I flash a bit of armpit, I apologise for that. But jumpers can get mended. People sometimes can't. We have a really developing, great acute healthcare system, which is fantastic at mending broken bones. You know, it's great at dealing with things that can get solved by tablets. Some things, the death of somebody that we really like, or gradual losses, they can be a bit harder. And what's really important for them is other people. And ideally, other people that have kind of thought about this a little bit. So 3 years ago, Hospice Foundation, Irish Hospice Foundation that I work for, and the men's sheds started a conversation about, well, how might we try and have a conversation about the unmentionable things? And eventually, I reached out to these guys, and we want to tell you the story of what's been going on for the last year and a bit. So I'm going to ask you first, just to tell us a little bit about your shed. Where is it, and how did it get started? So, John or Jimmy, do you want to go?
We're Lismore, men's shed, Westport. We opened in 2019. We've about roughly 26-30 members. The reason we're here today, I suppose, is because our chairman, Joe Tobin, he's a founder member. He died suddenly in 2022, and Joe's a man for all seasons, as you could say. He anything he want done, Joe do it. He'd sell tickets. He's joined every club in town. But when Joe's gone, then we decided what can we do in Joe's memory. So.
We're Westport Men's Sheds Group, and we were founded in 2012. Membership peaked at around 52, 53 during a project we were doing in 2020. And of course, then came COVID, and everything went quiet. So we've resurrected again after COVID, but and we've now 42 members. So that's what we're doing. And why are we here today? Because we're contacted by Rebecca asking, would we facilitate or take part in a project which was being covered by the Irish Hospice Foundation, and that was to write a song about grief and loss. And then as an afterthought, it sounded to me like Rebecca says, would you throw in Christmas maybe? So that's why we're here. We went ahead and with the great help of Mike Hanrahan and Tony Reedy, our own men's shed man, we completed a song which we have recorded, and it's videoed, and we hope to actually perform it today for ye all here. Thanks.
So they'll get into the performing bit. You might have heard them rehearsing when you were eating your lunch. But Jimmy, when we first got in touch with you and said, you know, would you like to do something about dying, death, and grief and loss? What did you think initially? What came to your mind?
Yes, it was October 22. we didn't know really, you know, it was hard to think of an idea. It was something new on us, and we thought about it for a few months, and then we came up with an idea. It's funny enough that the idea was staring us in the face all the time, because Joe was a postman all his life. And then one of the lads came up with the idea, don't we build a post box where you can post a letter? And across from us there's an old folks home, and there's a mortuary alongside us, and anyone that comes there, they can write in a card and post in the letter, you know, post in the letterbox.
Can you show the Lismore video? Yeah. While that's getting lined up, it explains it, and then we might talk a little bit more about it. No, the other one. Not that one, the other one. The thing I notice about Westport people is once they've got a song, they really want to play it all the time. Sorry. While they're doing that, we'll figure it out. Yeah. We good?
We lost our chairman nearly 12 months ago. We were trying to think what to do. It's hard to come up with an idea. So. And then this was the post box seemed fitting.
Because Joe was a postman, like. You know what I mean? He was famous for his bike driving around the town and the delivery bike.
Anyone that comes up there and goes into the home, they can put a card in, you know. No suggestions and films areas. We don't know, we see what kind of response it gets, and then we can work from there. But, you know, we take it day by day, you know. Should we down the pub have a conversation? No, I put a letter in there. There's a lovely box above us at the mint shed in the gate there, you know. Just create a conversation in the pub too.
Yeah, the main thing here is gardening.
It's all about enjoyment, it's not about work, it's enjoyment. It's about when you come in there and have a cup of tea and have a chat, shoulder to cry and whatever. It was just saying about how they're good for fellas to chat and thing, and for mental health and all that, you know. Fellas have no place to go, like they're at home on their own. Frame of mind too, you know, mental state of mind that can do you good, you know.
It was Joe's main ambition to this the best men's shed in the country.
Yeah, had them saying it like.
So we kind of done something different, you know, which is fitting in a way too, like, you know, it's unique in its own sense.
Lord of Mercy on 10, he was the man who was behind this shed. He read about the shed someplace and he said, yes, it's what is needed from Mallow. I think it is only right that coming up to the 12th anniversary that we do something in Tim's honour, and that is to make a bench in his memory. The bench shed is very important to me. I damaged my back in 1974. I am not very good with manual work, but I can do paperwork, administration and that. Without the bench shed, depression sets in very easy. Let's be honest about it.
When you come to the shed, like I find, you always feel good after it. Like working on the bench, you were improving your skills, but you were also doing it for somebody that meant something to you. And you did it with a certain amount of love or a little bit of intent and things like that to get it right. Like working together, when you're doing something together, you get kind of an empathy with the person that you're working with. And you can talk to them about things as well. If there's something on your mind that you're kind of pent up about, it helps an awful lot. But like, you see, a lot of us have people close to us that we have lost, and we understand what it means. The more people who are in the conversation, the more probably solace that you'll get out of it.
You're getting your steps in as well as your squats. So the legs are going. So one of the things we realised at the Hospice Foundation is if I want to have a conversation with you straight on about something difficult, like somebody who's died, somebody who's bereaved, and we all have that person, that could be a difficult conversation to have face to face, straight on. Sometimes it's a lot easier to be making something, and it comes out in the conversation. And so that's what we did. We went to various sheds around the country. I think we're on about 8 or 9 by now. And we asked people, what was it you'd like to do? Would you like to memorialise somebody, or would you like to do something? Tell me a little bit more about the postbox. Jimmy or John, the postbox is there. You can write to the postbox.
Yeah, it's an actual post box. You can post into it at the shed address, and it's alongside our shed post box. Yeah, I think it's a place to address the dying that gets in the way of living, you know. And it's there for anyone.
And people have been using it.
Yeah, we've had a bit of use. It has. And every 6 months we empty it and we destroy what's in it, you know, the letters are in. So it's totally private what goes in there, you know. It's between you and God knows who or whatever, you know.
Because it's about the process of doing the writing rather than reading.
I suppose it takes away the grief, you know. I think it does, you know, it helps.
Yeah. So, Westport, you decided that you'd write a song.
We decided we'd write a song after some discussions and reassurances that Mike Hanrahan was coming on board, and our own Tony Reedy agreeing that he'd head up the project. Mike Hanrahan, by the way, is a singer-songwriter that probably a lot of you know, but we have our own one in Westport as well, Tony Reedy, and together the two lads undertook the project, you know, and we all wrote in.
One, two, three, four.
Westport exemplify really all that sheds do. They're an open shed, doesn't matter who you are, there's a welcome for you.
2, 3, 4 of us started meeting, and gradually it evolved. I suppose at its maximum prior to COVID and the lockdown, we had 52 men actively involved in the Westport Men's Shed.
And we would meet on Thursdays and go for walks and talk. And then gradually, as the pandemic ended, we started meeting collectively.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for fellas to talk about health. It could be bereavement, somebody has lost somebody, it could be about somebody's ill, somebody's feeling a bit lonely.
These talks don't start spontaneously, they need some trigger, and it can be somebody setting the theme, or it can be somebody singing songs that evoke memories.
And we have a bit of fun as well, and we're singing and maybe 10 o'clock until 11 in the morning, which is an unusual enough experience for most of the lads, I'd say, but it is kind of uplifting, kind of sets you up for the day, you know.
The perfect shed really to take part in this gorgeous and unique project between ourselves and Hospice.
The idea struck me that I'm in a room with a bunch of guys who would like to talk once a week. So I thought it was a great idea at Christmas time to write a song together as a unit.
The collective evolution of the song came from a discussion of Christmas and association of words with Christmas, and that became a magic song, and everyone was part of it. It wasn't some outsider wrote a song, they were part of it. It was terrific.
I got a whole bunch of amazing images and words. By the time I got to Longford, I had the melody written in my head. And that's the melody that stayed. So it was in the moment. That doesn't happen too often.
We exchange lyrics back and forth, but writing to a melody, I found tricky enough, you know. It's an experience, yeah, and I really liked the melody. I liked the chorus especially. I thought it was a brilliant chorus, uplifting kind of a chorus, you know. For me, personally, like to give something that does something for people is what makes it worthwhile for me, and I enjoy it, you know.
It was the most beautiful experience as a writer. Normally you're chasing ideas and words, they were all there for me. And it's their song. It's a bunch of guys in a room in a men's shed in Westport talking about Christmas. It's got some of the sadness of Christmas, but it's so much hope in the song. So yeah, it was a joy from start to finish.
It's a wonderful thing to hear men sing together. It's very moving, and I think the things that they have explored in the process, what they've created, it's very individual, it's about them, but it also will resonate universally.
The whole thing was being together, learning this song. Men who said they could never sing were out there singing today, and fair play to the men. I think they pulled it off.
So that's the last of the exercise. So we're going to end this, not just yet, with a little version of that song. Mike Hanrahan is back there and hiding in the back of the room because he's shy. But I want to talk a little bit with you about what doing that makes possible, what it enables to happen. So here's a little bit of grief theory. So used to be, about 30 years ago, people talked about stages of grief. And they've kind of rubbished that. What they talk about now is that grief is it's like a ball in a glass jar. And the ball stays the same size. It doesn't really go away. Instead, what can happen with the support of other people is that you build your life back around it. So if you imagine there's a ball in a glass jar, it's the glass jar that gets bigger. And for that to happen, you need other people. You need other people and conversations and chat and you know, the carry on. With ye, I guess, I'm going to come to you first, then I'll come to you. What happened when you started writing the song? What did it make possible?
During the process of writing the song, there was many, I suppose, emotions experienced by people. The process was actually interesting. I liked what Mike did. Mike came in and he said, okay, we had a workshop, just to fill you in basically what happened. Mike came to Westport and met all the men, and we had a workshop where the very first question Mike threw around at everybody was, give us a word that you would associate with Christmas. So everybody went around, and he went around, everybody gave their word, and then he came back and asked to elaborate on it. So that allowed the process of, you're thinking about where the word came, it's usually something springs to mind quick when you're asked a question like that, what's the first word? And things do actually, if you let it. So by elaborating on that word, then you'll be able to say, well, you're probably going through an exploration process yourself, wondering, where did that word come? What does it mean to me? And people were able to verbalize it then as to what that was. During that whole process, we had quite a number of get-togethers. After Mike left, and himself and Tony put the words together, and Mike put the melody and sent them back to us, we had quite a number of gatherings to learn the song, and we knew that they were coming down for a bit of a video of it, so that was a great process. But during those get-togethers, there was many discussion on aspects of grief and loss and bereavement, and people probably felt a bit more comfortable over a period of time talking on that subject, and people began to open up and talk about personal issues. And during that process, people began to learn respect for every member in that shed, because each of us has gone through pain, hurt, grief. So some members are willing to share, which was very great. We were grateful for, and for the rest of us to learn about how they've experienced emotions. And when you think about it, deep down, we've all experienced those emotions ourselves, but we haven't maybe spoken about it. But it allowed us to start talking about this, as we call this, the unmentionable, how we feel sadness, how we experience grief. And I suppose we haven't actually got on to how we deal with it, which is really, I suppose, something we should be talking about. Would you like? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Jimmy or John, I'm interested in whose phone is that? Is that mine? Last time I was on stage, my phone went off, but I think it might be yours, is it? It's gone. Then, when you put the postbox up in the town, people started using it in Lismore, no?
Oh yeah, it got around fairly rapidly enough. People are delighted to use it as a and putting down letters on and off like that. But grief, as Mike said there, is not only I know a house memory is about grief and loss, but people could be suffering from. I suffer from Parkinson's myself. That's a lot. That's a loss of a lot of my mobility as such. Other illness more serious than that, like. So that is lost as well. So people they identify with that as well, So with as Jimmy said earlier, with the Cartledge's home, which is a rest home across the road, it's for the elderly, like. and a lot of those people use the box as such, or different ailments, like as the way or means for them to.
Because once you've made a place for things to go, they go there. Yeah, it's like having a box.
House memory is about grief and loss, and that's the main thing to take away from today, I think.
Fab. And then, Jimmy, anything to add? What were you gonna? You were prompt with a question. I thought you were going to add something in there. You moved. No? Back, you were saying, how do we deal with it? We talked about this a lot.
What you said there was, how do we deal with it? I suppose it's a cultural thing, how people deal with grief. It's a learned behaviour, isn't it, really? Loss and grief, you've learned it from generations before you. You've learned it from your peers and what you have seen in other forums, television, radio, or heard on. But I often, it's not correct. The way that we have traditionally dealt with grief has been extremely damaging. Recently there, I was looking at some research that was carried out for the NHS, and it was specifically done on how men deal with grief and loss. And it made for some worrying conclusions the research came out with. It showed that 80% of the people who were involved in the research stated that they had felt absolutely alone going through their grieving. I mean, 80%. The question would be, why? Why were you so alone? And there were some amazing answers. And I was really, when I saw the figures and the fact, but this was a very large study that was done. 33% of them said they didn't want to appear weak. They felt that it would show a sign of weakness if they showed their sadness. 42% said they would never have got through their grieving without the help of alcohol and illicit substances. 33% felt they would be shunned by their peers if they had started talking about it. 41% stated they hadn't even discussed it with their nearest and dearest. So these are traditional ways of men grieving, but how damaging is it? You can't actually express how you're feeling and bottle it up. That will cause absolute chaos internally. It leads to depression, anxiety, and as the research shows, to a dependence on substances that are of no benefit to you, that are actually damaging to you. So, how do we grieve? We haven't been doing a good job on it by that research. What would be a more effective way of grieving? Verbalizing and ventilating, expressing over and over again how you feel, and not worrying what people will think about you, telling them that you're sad, that you're lonely, that you're upset, that you're crying at night. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the normal human response. It's just that we have been conditioned to behave in a way that is not helpful to us. So maybe it's time we started thinking of an alternative. That alternative, as I said, is letting it out and getting people to listen. I know people often say to me, they have got somebody who's after having a loss, and they'll say, God, I'd love to be able to reach out and talk to them, but I don't know what to tell them. I don't know what to say. I don't know, what do you say? I will say this to you. You don't have to say anything. You really don't. All that person wants is a kind, sympathetic ear that will listen to them. And you may have to say it over and over again, what you're saying. And you may have to be on the receiving end of it. But that is the greatest help and the greatest gift you can give to another person who's gone through the grieving. So if you take anything away from this today, lads, if somebody you know has had a loss, go to them, say that you're there for them, and just listen. That's all you have to do, nothing else.
So we're kind of nearly at the end, really. We end with a big finale because we're going to invite the Westport group to come up. And while the multitudes are assembling, inside of your packs there is an envelope. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to write your own message to go to the Lismore postbox. And up by the door, I think, there is. As you head out at the end of today, there's a box, and you might put your message in the box, and no one is ever going to read it. This is just a message for you. It'll go to the Lismore postbox, it'll be looked after, and then in about 6 months, it'll be part of the letters that get burnt. Or we will share around with you the address for the postbox, and you might use it as a thing to talk to your fellow shedders. It might be something that they fancy doing in time. Is up there by the door. Yeah. Jimmy, John, any last things you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I just first like the House of Memory was a great project for us because we were able to deal with grief and we were able to talk about Joe while we were building the postbox. So it was a process of healing, you know, and it brought our members together at the same time, you know, it united us, you know, so it was a fantastic project, and we'd like to thank the Irish Hospice and Rebecca and for doing that for us, you know. Even the town, the whole area, it affected the whole area, like the people, you know. It's massive, like.
I think with ye, there's the individual, but then there's also, it's a place where the pandemic can go. It's a place where you can put all those things that everybody lost from the pandemic, and it's a beautiful thing that you've done. I'd like to thank John, I'd like to thank Jimmy, I'd like to thank Brendan for having the courage to sit up here and talk about the Unmentionables. Okay.
Okay, folks, while the Westport men assemble on the stage for the performance, just two little things I want to tell you. First one is that the lyrics of the song are actually in your pack there, so if you want to dig in and get in voice, please do. The second thing is that at the back, Lorraine has about 10 spaces for health checks, so if there's anybody who hasn't had a health check and wants one, the back of the room, there's red high-vis, so about 10 of them. If you want to grab a health check, you can. And thanks very much. I'm going to hand you over to the Westport Men's Shed. The words are in your white pack.